Hi everyone. I was getting a message the other day from Spirit and I thought it was a really powerful message. The message was about how they said Jesus and the devil started off as brothers. So Jesus and Lucifer, they said, started off as brothers with the same mission. And I thought this was really interesting because I don't really look at things that way, or I really don't, I'm not the kind of person that likes to dig too deeply into something before Spirit brings it up, because I don't want my imagination to get carried away with the idea. I know that there's a lot of theories out there. I know that there's a lot of beliefs and religions around the topic, but to me, I feel like everything will come in a way I can understand it when I'm ready to understand it, when it's time. So I never really pry and dig for those things. I wait for them to come to me. And so I was hearing and listening to my spirit team about this story. And they said that Lucifer, the bringer of light, was to come to earth and transmute negative energy into positive energy. So he was supposed to do what all of us have been doing. We come to earth in this multi-incarnations process, and we try our very best to take on these very earthly experiences and heal from them. So when we have a tragedy, the ability to move through that tragedy and heal is actually the transmutation of energy. So essentially, we're taking something negative and we're giving it a positive charge and we let it go. What happens when we cannot heal is we have this accumulation of trauma and we have this accumulation of negative energy. That accumulation becomes so overwhelming that we look for alternate sources of energy to kind of survive or keep afloat or bury the trauma. So it becomes so overwhelming that we need something to kind of hide it, or we avoid it. And then we practice avoidance mechanisms. Some avoidance mechanisms are blame, drama, blaming other people for all your problems, feeling helpless, feeling like you're not in control, addiction. So we try to mask all this pain and suffering through addiction or addictive behaviors. We might try the quick fix, which again is, some people try to screw their trauma out, and some people over exercise their trauma out. Some people try to overdrink their trauma out. Some people pick horrible patterns to distract themselves from their healing. So there's a lot of ways that we avoid healing in this time, and it's almost because we're so overwhelmed by all of this pain and suffering that we kind of feel like there's no other way out. If we look at the history of the world, ancient Egypt had a great understanding about healing soul trauma and energy. The pyramids were actually used to realign energy and to heal people. They were very in tune and aware of their emotional body, their energetic body, their spiritual body, and their physical body. And in that way, they could continue healing and evolving. Although we still have a lot of trauma from those lives, whether it was from abuse or lies or incest or rape or whatever it was, those lives still have their own traumas. But they had a better understanding about healing. We've lacked that understanding for hundreds of thousands of years now. And instead, we try to, those are where all these traumas lie. All of our traumas in all of our past lives have been times where we cannot heal from the things we faced. So we could not transmute that negative energy. We were accumulating it instead, and we were having it kind of add on. So the first taint of this energy happens on our first incarnation. As soon as we come to earth, we've created positive and negative karma here on earth with our experience with earth. Nobody has a perfect life. There might have been a time where we are guilty of being greedy, or where we lose our temper, or where we explode. And in all these times, we've created some kind of karmic debt. A part of us says, well, I need to make that back. I lost my temper. That wasn't right. Now I have a lesson to learn. Now I have something to work through. And that is what we call the first taint. And it's a way of saying that we're all sinners. We're all here because we all have some kind of something to work through. Now, I, of course, am a past life reader, so I can see someone's soul records. I can see all of their lives. Most people on earth have about 300 lives that they're working through right now, healing and repairing and transmuting. And I know for a fact that if somebody knows something is wrong, it's because they have personally experienced it in a past life. So, for example, if you know murder is wrong, you likely have murdered in a past life, whether it was by accident or on purpose or because of jealousy, anger, possession, addiction, whatever it was. You were somehow involved in that situation, and now you understand it's wrong, and now you could never do that to another human being. We are, in fact, creatures of experience. We are physical beings. We are physically experiencing this reality. This is part of the learning process. So we have so many incarnations so that we can learn all of these systems, so that we can continue evolving and kind of working through them. But what happens is, the more we experience these lives without any information on healing or soul repair, the more weight we carry, the harder it is to heal. Some of my most traumatized clients are the most evolved clients. And if we think about, most people, like I said, on earth have about 300 lives. Some of my more experienced clients have about 700 lives. So that's twice as much, over twice as much opportunity for trauma, twice as much baggage, twice as much things to heal. But the amazing thing that happens is, once we clear that trauma, we have somebody who is so powerful, somebody who is just, something people would write about, a very gifted soul, a very intuitive soul, a very connected soul, a very aware soul. But this only happens if we are able to heal. Now, someone like me has been a healer for hundreds of years. I've been into that process and understanding. I have taught multiple times on earth. I have helped people heal their trauma multiple times on earth. It's something I have a lot of soul level experience with. So it's something that I can do easily. Therefore, it's very easy for me to clear my own trauma. I've done it so many times, it just becomes a natural, trauma transmute. And because of that, I evolve very quickly. I can activate my gifts and use my gifts like I have been doing globally. And I can help other people use their gifts and tap into their gifts. But there are times and places where we believe it's impossible. And the way I like to explain it is, if you have a paper cut, it stings, right? It hurts, it stinks, no big deal, but it still bothers you. It's hard to do the dishes. It's hard to use sanitizer. It's hard to do anything because it's constantly reminding you it's there, right? It's just burning all the time until it heals. But if you have a car accident and you break 62 bones, it's going to be a lot harder to focus on one particular trauma. You're going to feel tired and exhausted. You're going to feel like you can't face any of those traumas. You're going to need a lot of help and a lot of medication. You're going to need a lot of energy. Focus your way. And this is kind of like our life traumas. When we get to a point of healing that it's only a paper cut, it's annoying, but it's no big deal. It's easy to shed. It's easy to shift. It's easy to heal. When our body is hyper traumatized by all of these experiences and we are overwhelmed, we're going to need way more than just time. We're going to need actual soul level intervention. We're going to need clearing, healing, repair, therapy, outward assistance. We're probably going to need some kind of recovery program. Some people need AA. Some people need medication. And it's because we're getting to a point of such trauma that there really is, we need more work. Our physical reality is in fact the manifestation of our layered or energetic reality. So the more we experience something, the more intense it gets. And our energy is the basis of our physical experience. So if we've had 700 lives and we've had multiple traumas to those lives, they become our inner programming. And this is the fascinating thing that happens when we heal. We heal and shed all of those traumas, and we become the best version of ourselves, which is limitless in so many different ways. Our traumas keep our soul from being fully heard, expressed, and integrated. And I like to imagine it kind of like a machine. If you have a machine that's misfiring, you're not going to put full blast. You're not going to be like, well, we're going to use this anyways. We're just going to let it explode. Our gifts kind of work the same way. If we have a vessel that's misfiring energy because of trauma, our higher self isn't going to be like, well, let's just give it 100% and see what happens. We're leaking energy all over the place. First, we have to repair the leaks, the trauma. And then all of a sudden we can get that full blast, and our life changes. And I also say this in terms of manifestation. I feel like a lot of people don't understand that manifestation comes from healing. We must first heal before all things, before gift activation, before happiness, before we can be healthy partners, before we can be healthy parents, before we can manifest the things that we want. Healing means manifestation. It's almost like taking, somebody that's starving and saying, what's the one thing you want right now? It's food, right? And when you're healed and comfortable and you're in a place where you're providing for yourself, your demands get a little bit higher because your energy is more evolved, and you're a little bit, you're out of that survival mentality. So you can see more, grasp more, understand more, you can reach for more. So our manifestation also evolves as we grow and expand ourselves. We suddenly understand we are worthy of more. We kind of walk out of that perpetual suffering that we were once a part of when we had all these traumas and wounds to our soul structure. The interesting thing about past life trauma that keeps coming up recently too, in some of my questions on my page and website, are traumas are more than just physical. Traumas are also emotional, things like guilt. Was there a life where you feel responsible for your child's death? That is really common. I mean, we have people in this life that lose a loved one that had nothing to do with them, and they still carry tremendous guilt about it. And you literally couldn't have done anything about it. Like, they died of like a heart attack, across the state, and you weren't even their primary caregiver, but we still find a weird way to blame ourselves. I should have been there more. I should have visited more. Maybe if I had checked up on them, maybe if I just happened to fly across the country and be by their side, they wouldn't be dead. We always kind of try to find a way to blame ourselves for the passing of the ones that we love. So in a way, we have all these opportunities for trauma, but we do have emotional trauma, and that's kind of like one of the largest versions of trauma that we have in this experience. Self-limiting beliefs. And I think that one's really important. Our human mind is very much like a computer. Every life that we have acts like a program. We're programming our limitations, our experiences, what we've seen, what we've done. And like I said, this life is a life of experience. This incarnation on earth is an incarnation of experience. We have to physically work through something to know that it is possible. So in a way, we're very limited to what people told us was possible, to what we have physically had the courage to complete or accomplish. And if we look at history, there's a lot of things we weren't supposed to do, right? There's a lot of rules. First of all, if you're a woman, you weren't supposed to work. You weren't supposed to leave the home. You weren't supposed to speak out of line. You weren't supposed to speak unless spoken to. You weren't supposed to own property. You weren't supposed to run a business. So there's a lot of things that we were limited in doing. And those become limiting beliefs. So how many lives did you have where you were being programmed this information that you were supposed to behave a certain way, that you were supposed to be a certain way, respond a certain way, act a certain way, hide your personality, be proper, follow etiquette, respond appropriately, be sexually appropriate, not wear slutty clothes? How many lives have we had where all of these self-limiting beliefs were programmed through your mind and your brain? Hundreds of lives. So sometimes it's not about you watched your child get burned alive. Sometimes it's not about being in war or surviving war. Sometimes it's what kind of beliefs were programmed into my psyche that I'm still carrying with me today that are limiting me and obstructing me from being my fullest self. And those are actually some of the sneakiest traumas that I find. Because if you were programmed with that belief, you don't know how to see outside of it until something crashes in your life and you realize, I was blinded this whole time. I didn't have that scope, that reality. This happens a lot to parents of gay children. If they have, they have all these limiting beliefs where their religion or their beliefs or their family told them that people were supposed to behave a certain way. And then all of a sudden they have a child and that child is gay. And now they have to either face the reality that everything they found out might be false and that gay people can still be loving human beings that aren't possessed, that have beautiful families that are very aligned. Or they have to fight their love and say, no, my programming is stronger and I can't walk away from that. So that would be a perfect example of a self-limiting belief. The only thing spirit guides is anything from the highest, most evolved love. Love comes in all forms. Spirit doesn't have genitals. Spirit is neither he or she. We are a mutual combination of both aspects of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So spirit really has absolutely no qualms or issues about where people put their genitals. That is a very, very human structure. It is based off hatred programmed here on earth. So it's really fascinating to watch somebody kind of break through this belief system and structure and finally realize, I'm pretty sure that's human. And then now I have the ability to walk away from it. So we have millions of beliefs and systems that are like this. A lot of them are even fear-based. Like, for example, today I had a very gifted woman who was terrified, couldn't tap into her gifts. And one of the reasons, who we're doing many, many lives together, but one of the reasons that came up multiple times was that she had died many times in her lives because people claimed she was of the devil, wicked, witch, or a bad human being. And in every single life she was in fact not. In one life she was a healer, in one life she might have been an astrologist, in another life she was a doctor, in another life she was a medium. And she was terrified to use her gifts because every single time she did, somebody would scream witch and have her killed and burned. That was one of my biggest fears coming out as gifted. I remember having this conversation with my mother, and I was thinking, I can't do this openly. People judge, people will hate me. Everybody says it's against their beliefs, and I was really terrified. And my mom goes, what are you talking about? You're so lucky. At this time and age, nobody's, hanging people for being witches. You're very lucky. And I thought about it and I was like, oh yeah, why do I have some really outdated belief that people are still gonna, burn my house down or come at me with pitchforks? And it's because I myself had a whole bunch of lives I had to work through where I was killed for my own gifts. And then I started working through them and realized, I'm safe now. And that was, I can't clear fear. I can't take your brain and erase it. But I can bring it up. And then you can release it, and then it's easier to face. We clear fear by facing it. So I had to face it by coming out, by being open about who I was and about my gifts and about doing it. And I'm glad I did, because it changed my life. And I know it's changed thousands of lives of people all around the world that follow me and learn from me and have activated their gifts with me. It's an amazing feeling to help people step into their power and to help them step into healing. And so I am forever thankful that I had that kind of courage to do that. But I just wanted to talk about these couple of topics because I thought it was a really profound example of how we have an opportunity to be both things. It was really like the yin and the yang coming forward. His job was to be the bringer of light, right? And that's where the name came from. But his inability to heal changed everything about him. So we actually through our experiences on earth, we either raise our vibration or lower our vibration. So if we get into that cycle where we can't heal, we can't release, we can't face our traumas, and we're looking for easy outs and escapes, and our traumas accumulating and accumulating, our vibration actually lowers and lowers. It goes into self-destructive behavior, which is chaos and destruction, right? If we are destroying our body, destroying our spirit, destroying ourselves, we are lowering in vibration. It's a constant destruction of, it's just inner destruction. So every single time we do that, our vibration would lower and lower and lower. Eventually, we would resonate with the demonic entities. So the other side of the barrier. I do explain this many times. I'll explain it very quickly on this video, but I have another one on YouTube that explains demonic entities better. But it is not a form of punishment. It is a form of resonation. We choose who we want to be. We choose who we are. So if we are choosing self-destructive behavior, we resonate with it because it's our family. It suits us. That's what we've chosen for ourselves. And there are planes of vibration. So this would be the barrier. And then we have the negative planes of vibration, and we have the positive planes of vibration. And together they create the positive negative polarity, which creates infinite energy. So any energy here is the equal and opposite here, and the equal and opposite reflection, and energy goes back and forth through this cycle. So it's not a form of judgment. We are who we choose to be, and we are all part of an energetic cycle that feeds each other, just like a battery, a positive and a negative polarity. So Lucifer, the bringer of light, was supposed to come in, transmute energy, and evolve. Jesus succeeded on his mission. He evolved enough to get to a place and a point where he was now considered an ascended master, a teacher, somebody who could guide others into healing. Lucifer could not heal. He could not face his fears. He could not stand up to his own healing, and he got carried away with his trauma. And he is the perfect example of what happens on that. So he kept pulling himself apart and punishing himself and self-destructing, and that put him in the negative polarity. So it was kind of like the yin and yang, the brothers split. And when we say brothers, we mean they had the same mission, they came down together, they had the same goals to do this, and then it was disrupted. So now we have, the example here, which is the story that has been mixed up many times and told differently many times all over the world. But it's a story of how he kind of became who people see him as in this day and time. So I thought it was quite interesting and quite fascinating, because it kind of it shows us about the options. It shows us about how we heal, how we evolve, and what to do. And I know it's something I talk about a lot, but I think that it's also very, very profound and necessary if we're trying to evolve and heal and make good decisions for our energy and selves. Thanks for listening.